Ferrum Network brings you the Ferrum Advisory Services NFT Division. FAS NFT Division is your one source for your NFT needs.
Hey everybody, Nick Odio here from the Growth Strategy Division at Ferrum Network, GSD, better known as Get Shit Done. I'm super excited about the guest that we have on board with us today. He's the newest addition, he's our newest partner at FAS NFT Division, and really excited to have BK the artist joining us. This guy is incredibly talented. He's done some extremely impressive things throughout his career in the art world. And we're just really excited to have him working with Ferrum. And so without further ado, let's introduce you guys to him. What's up, BK?
What's up, Nick? Thank you for that introduction, man. That was great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. How you doing?
I can't complain. Doing great. Thank you.
Right on. That's a pretty impressive picture you got back there. I love that one.
Yeah, you know, one of the built-in benefits of being an artist is I never run out of backdrops. So
right.
this is one of the ones I'm working on now. So it might be a little sneak peek for something down the road.
Let's go. Cool, man. Right on. So yeah, man, I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you. It's been, really good getting to know you as not only as an artist, but as a person, and kind of developing the rapport and kind of strategizing about how we're going to go about these drops that we're strategizing. And it's pretty exciting stuff, man. I think you're going to make a big splash in the NFT scene, and we're just really excited to have you on board. So let's kind of dive into some of the questions that we got for you so the community can get to know you better.
Excellent.
Yeah. So obviously, I think everybody's super excited to know about like how you view the NFT scene and how you feel like value is going to be added to you and how you're going to add value to the NFT space. But like, let's first just kind of touch on a little bit of a background about yourself as an artist. Like what really inspired you to become one, and when did that all happen? When did that go down?
Sure. Well, as far back as I can remember, I feel like my talent was something I was born with and giving, and I look at it like a blessing. When I was very young, I could capture the two-dimensional world or the three-dimensional world into two-dimensional, planes of paper. And so I don't know what I would be other than an artist. It's in my blood. I joke sometimes that if you were to cut me open, acrylic paint will flow out. So my whole life journey has been trying to do that talent justice and finding out what I was given that gift for. And so that's why there's so many messages and purposes within my work that I try to, use the canvas, use my paintings as something bigger, something that can tell a story and make a change in the world. And so, the shortest summary of it is I grew up in Baltimore, and I was an athlete in high school and didn't really have a portfolio. And, being an artist was something that was more like a pipe dream that I could have to reach for and see if it could happen. Maryland Institute of Art, for instance, is in my home state. It's one of the best schools, and I wouldn't have even met the portfolio requirements. What was interesting is my father, he's an old school Greek dude, and he was like, look, have something to fall back on. So I ended up going to school at Hofstra University for graphic design, which was one of the best decisions I ever made because it was a budding industry. It allowed me to understand business a different way. It allowed me to learn about branding, things like that. So by the time I got to school, I would fill up my electives with like painting courses and become very much so ingratiated in the fine art department. And I could see kind of that what I was producing and capable of, that I could belong there. So I approached the department one time and just basically asked for an exhibition in the school gallery. And they couldn't tell me no because there wasn't a good reason. There was a law in the scheduling. And I used the computer lab to create the flyers and design the posters and to print them out and kind of, flood the campus and create a buzz. And from that day on, I've been an artist. It's such a vivid memory because I wouldn't even call myself that word until I had achieved something that I felt like was worthy of it. And so, taken from a very early age, the blueprint of, make a path for myself where there isn't one. Don't take no for an answer. Have the utmost extreme belief in what I can do, and it served me well to this point, and kind of connect the dots along the way that I'm excited to tell you more about.
Sweet, man. Yeah, that's fascinating. Super, serendipitous how that all came about, and I love your whole ethos of not taking no for an answer. I've heard you say in the past, like, I don't have a plan B. There's just plan A, and I think that's like super inspirational. And I think if everyone lived their life like that, people would be capable of a lot more things. A lot more good things. So that's
Exactly. And on that point, like when I graduated, it's the age old question of, I could work on somebody else's dream for the rest of my life as a designer and, go into that field and get a good paying job. But I thought to myself, like, what other opportunity in my life am I going to have to really work on my dreams? And what if I pursue those as the highest priority? Let me try that first and see what happens. And so I incorporated a company, got some great clients. My senior year, I was even bringing outside work into my design classes to get graded on, that I was designing logos for people and stuff. And right after I graduated, I started a graphic design company. Those clients ended up coming over to get websites or branding identities, and they'd see the paintings behind me and say, what's that about? And I tell them, well, I'm also a painter. And eventually, they'd be coming over to get a website and a painting. And it built up my collector base. And when, the economy fell out in '08, all the budgets went, and it was just like another one of those crossroads. Like, well, I did what the great advice from my father was. I had a base to start with as a business to be able to be my own boss and pursue my dreams. And I was like, well, here it is, man. Here's the next crossroad. Like, now I don't need the training wheels of also being a graphic designer. I'm going to be an artist. And I put myself out there, and it was the same blueprint. Never take a no for an answer. You're never going to open any door you don't knock on. If the front door is not available, look around the side. There might be a back entrance. And it's just like this raw perseverance to figure out, like, I know I was put in this earth to say something, and I'm going to get it out one way or the other.
Yeah, man. And that actually segues perfectly into this next question I was going to ask you. Um, like, what would you say the artistic style of BK the artist is? What sets you apart, and what makes your art more valuable than other people in the space?
Well, I think my style is so unique because it was born out of real world struggle. I love the story of how Hendrix plays the guitar. Forgive me, I'm not sure if it's backwards or it's strung differently, but there's a uniqueness to the way that he played it because he taught himself, and there's an element of that in my work. When I was in college, I was a struggling college student, didn't really have money for real art supplies. And so, as an example, I would stretch out my paint so much because I was worried that I would run out. And so I developed this style. It's almost like watercolor painting with acrylic, where it's very thin layers that build up over time. And I've made it my own to the point that, I think my style is so unique, people can recognize it, even though I paint in quite a few different styles and series, which is the next part of the question was, I know that when I study art history and look around, like an artist is known for their thing or their look, or, when you think of Keith Haring, you think of that drawing style. When you think of Andy Warhol, you might have think the famous Warhol silk screens, but there's a whole career of Andy Warhol and his drawings before that, which are lovely. And so I just always thought, like, the same way that I was an athlete growing up, the best players are 5-tool players. It's like you got all the different skills, offense, defense. You're a good team player. You make people around you better. And so I kind of fashioned the way that I make art. Like, I wanted to be able to do everything. I had to be technically good enough to draw photorealistic, but then I had to be conceptual and original enough to be able to deconstruct that back down and get into, like, the way that I hide elements and weave images together. It's like my exhibitions, I title them levels because it's such a perfect word to describe how I work. There's levels to every part of it. Level 2, the way that I paint with the layers, levels to the elements that you can decipher as you look through it, levels to the teachings and meanings within the work themselves. It's almost like enter and take what you want from it. How deep do you want to go into it? It's beautiful on the surface, but there's so much more underneath. And so like my life really dictated for me to have, so I have like these 5 different styles or series that I paint in, because one style lends itself to making social commentary about what's going on in the world and current events. I call it like acrylic alchemy. And it's this idea like the alchemist of taking a base metal and raising it into gold, taking like a base level of awareness of a human being and enlightening them. And so like I try through acrylic paint, literally like a science lab, cooking up different compositions that can inspire conversations that could help make our world a better place. Then I have another style that's just called spread love. I've been based in Brooklyn for a long time, and it's this idea, it's the Brooklyn way, and it just worked with my initials as BK the artist. And so I started painting a counter narrative to a lot of the things we see in pop culture, which is like quick love or one night stands or shallow relationships. And I started painting like couples and calling it pillow talk and hold her, and important from a man's perspective to show how you value the women in your life the right way. And then that led into other styles that were lighter than that, but figuratively based. Then what I call my signature style. My 2 favorite artists are Pablo Picasso and Salvador Dali, and not because they're the big names that everybody knows, because I think they're 2 of the most phenomenal creators that have ever lived. And so my style, that signature style, is almost like if you took 2 of them and mashed them together, and I came out, and it's like this hidden quality of Dali to be able to weave the elements together, and then just this exaggerated figurative style like Picasso. And that affords me a whole different message and commentary in that style. So I never wanted to box myself in. I never wanted to accept that I had to run with one style, because that's like not using all of my vocabulary. If I can speak the words and I know that they can be good, then why should I only use a couple sentences? And so that's, again, like this theme throughout my life and my career, is trying to create lanes where there haven't been before. And I know that to be able to reach as many people as possible, somebody might like one style and not like the other, but collectively I can kind of bring them all into what I'm about and see the bigger picture and push the whole project forward.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like your all your styles are unique as hell, right? And you talk about the different levels that you have to your individual pieces, but like you just got done explaining, there's just so many levels to you as an artist as well. I mean, going from the Earth series that you've created, with like the women with the earthy, the flowers, and that whole vibe,
Yeah.
to like a picture of 2 dudes duking it out behind you. It's like you can do a lot of different things. I mean, there's so much in between those 2 styles as well. So it's impressive, man, how many levels there are to BK as the artist, right?
Thank you. One of the things that always, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that school teaches art history as how you study early people. If you want to learn like anthropology about how a people existed before the written word, and obviously photography, you look at the artwork, it defines an age, a period of time, which is interesting because we'll talk about that later. But I was always so focused on, in my lifetime, when I make my work in 200 years, when they talk about what it was like to live now, I want to be on that page. And that's why I hold it in such a high regard and a responsibility, because if I'm trying to execute at the highest levels of creativity that's going to leave a history for people in the future to look back, then I need to record it as best I can. And that's always been like my blueprint and most aspirational goal is, that's what we're really talking about here, is what's your life work going to add up to, and what's the legacy going to be. And I can look you in the eyes and tell you I'm very proud thus far, and I'm excited for what's next to come, because I've definitely added some things to art that I think will be around for a long time.
Yeah, man, and I can agree with that. I think you've already made a massive imprint in the scene, and you've already created a legacy for you right now. I think, if all is said and done today, you could be proud of everything you've accomplished, and that kind of goes into. I love how that segues right into the next question that I have for you, because you've got an impressive group of people who collect your art. Like, you want to tell us a little bit about some of the people that you've already sold your art to, some of the people that collect your art?
Absolutely. And it has been a blessing that, you know, a lot of the people that I've been fans of, watched, followed as a fan, but not only somebody that looked up to these people, for them to be able to collect my work is still something that, you know, is just hard to wrap my head around. But, you know, for instance, one of my favorites is Carmelo Anthony. I'm from Baltimore. I remember watching him come up and winning with Syracuse. And so one of my most important pieces, The Pandemic of Systemic Marionettes, is in his personal collection. Bradley Beal, Carlos Boozer, T.I., Dame Dash, Swizz Beatz, Alicia Keys. There's probably a few more that I might be missing out off the top of my head. But what's beautiful about it is once you can kind of penetrate those rooms, or get the ears and attention of people at that level, I think if the work is good enough and speaks for itself, you know, there's a reason why they've gotten to where they are, and it's because they're able to tell what's worthwhile. And I'm just humbled by the fact that I'm in the collections of people that, you know, I look up to and I'm a fan of. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, bro. It's pretty crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been like as you started to sell to some of these people, and like the doors started opening up and more people just started coming at you like, yo, I want this. It's, you know, when it rains, it pours, and both good and bad ways. But for you, it's, you've had a lot of blessings, man. And that's awesome. And you deserve it. You know, you're incredibly talented. So, I'm looking forward to getting myself a BK piece, you know, here soon, or a BK
Yes,
NFT,
sir.
or
Yes, sir.
both. um, but
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
man. So you were kind of talking about how there's so many different levels to your work, right? Um, and I think, you know, that can also be described as like you. And I've heard you describe it this way as well. Like, your art tells a story. If you were to give kind of like a holistic synopsis of the story that you're telling, like what is BK the artist's story? Like, what is your message to the world? What are you trying to say through your art?
I think it can be distilled down into the simple concept of like, we're all artists of our own life, and we're painting our own masterpiece, but we're works in progress, you know? And so many people are so afraid of mistakes, or allow themselves to forget dreams, or lose the impetus to achieve what they really may have wanted to, because, you know, you get forlorn, you get, you know, it's a difficult thing to keep on pursuing. And so I think, like I described to you about how my work is derived from life experiences, um, most of my paintings are because I make mistakes, and then take the mistakes and utilize them to go places and directions that I never would have thought, because you don't think to make a mistake. So in life, you know, we could plan as best we can about, you know, what we're going to do, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan next week or 2 weeks, but life will throw a curveball at you. And it's what you do with that curveball, and how you adapt and how you pick yourself back up. You know, I love the quote, you could fall down 9 times, but I'm gonna get up 10, you know? And it's just this whole idea that even the way that I paint is about not being afraid to make a mistake, and then using that as not a crutch, but as a prop to, you know, hold myself up, and to keep on going. And so even like about what the rules of the art world are, how many styles you have, it's the same thing. It's like, listen, that might be a mistake, that might be counter to what the narrative is, but again, I'm gonna use it and make it mine. And I think if everybody, no matter what field you're in, whether it be arts or business or what, it doesn't matter, because it works across all platforms. The truth is, you know, it's like that Mike Tyson quotes, everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, life is going to punch you in the mouth, man. As an artist, the art world is going to punch you in the mouth. As a dreamer, the world is going to punch you in the mouth. And it's like, what do you do after that? You know, and you wipe off your lip and you keep on going. And so I think no matter what style you look at, no matter what piece you break down individually, it's a micro and macro level. There can be different nuances at that macro level, you know, but then when you kind of blow out, it's like it's the same thing. It's all about just putting your best foot forward, staying 10 toes down, taking what life has given you and throwing it back everything you got. And I think that is a line that runs through not only my life, what I speak about, what I'm about as a person, but also what I create as an artist.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's a cool story that you tell. So this is a super exciting time, right? Because we've got this kind of bridge between the traditional art world and now this digital art world, and what NFTs are doing for artists like yourself. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? There's a lot more opportunity with the value that NFTs bring as far as reselling and different things of that nature. So I guess the community is probably really interested in knowing what prompted you to want to get into the NFT space, and when did you decide to really dive in?
Sure. Well, I've been aware as it's been bubbling in the background for the last couple of months and really coming to a crescendo. And with anything, I like to really research and find the best entry point for me, or do my due diligence to find out, what's the best way forward. But as I learned more and got really familiar with what's going on in the space, it was like the smile just kept growing on my face, because I'm like, wait a second, this is something that I've been waiting for. I believe so much, like even my social following, what my paintings have been able to do, it's because, yes, you cannot substitute for being able to come and look at a painting in real life like this and seeing canvas fibers or brushstrokes. But what happens when the pixels are powerful? What happens that it even speaks to you on a screen that's, an iPhone or an Android? And that's what I've always, so it's, even to your last question, I kind of describe what my work is about from a process level and what it speaks to. But then as a message level, the overall theme is, I always like that idea, like, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it make a noise? Well, that's the exact same thing that I look at with my art. Like, I can make these paintings, but if they don't fall on eyes and they don't hit hearts, then what noise did it make? What impact did it make? And so when I look at this brand new digital world and this NFT world, to me, it's like the missing tool that I've been waiting to complete my tool belt. And it opens up in a completely different realm, not only for the way that my mind thinks and I think about making art, but then when you talk into things about animating my work and the story that we're going to talk about, how I paint that in a two-dimensional space. Imagine now what I can do in a three-dimensional space with animation and movement to really even bring that story to life. And so what it's done is it kind of feels like everything I ever painted is like now on steroids and about to go to like the next level, and I think it only increases the reach. It only allows me to bring more people in. And so figuratively, it's like I'm turning that volume up on my speaker, and I'm getting my message as loud as I can. Because at the end of the day, so much of what I paint is not about me. It's for you. I paint for you guys to feel, not to see. And I really think that, like, if you could take my body of work, and these are ideas that I have that I'll kind of hint at, but they could almost like teach a course about present day, about what's going on. And I think that at the end of that, I like to look at it like you walk away with something in your pockets. I don't necessarily know what it is. Maybe it's an inspiration. Maybe it's a little bit of knowledge for a conversation in your own circle. But I really try hard to make sure that when you meet me, see my work, speak to me, see what I'm about, I want you to remember me. I want to be memorable. That's a really important quality to have. What do they say? You might not remember what they said or the exact conversation, but how they made you feel.
Yeah,
Right.
what was that? That
And
was
that's what I'm trying to do.
she's from Africa. Maya Angelou said that.
Yes,
I love that
yes,
quote.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. I mean, you said something super cool about just in terms of the physical constraints of artwork, right? And a brush to a canvas. There's somatic and physical constraints that limit us to really be able to like put down on the canvas what's really in our mind. And I think something that I'm super excited for you is that you're just going to be able to let your imagination run wild with these NFTs. Like, there's no physical constraints. Like, digital art really just makes it possible to really put down whatever's in your mind and make it so much more interactive. And the missing tool to your tool belt. I like that. That's cool.
And everybody talks about a lot, being being forced to conform to a market or to make your work commercial, or just the idea of how hard it is to survive as an artist. So not only everything that you just mentioned, but the additional aspect of giving artists the financial mechanisms to sustain and make a life for yourself in a different way because of the smart contract aspect, because of the royalties, because of the idea that the traditional physical world has some holes in it as far as like the structure. If I sell an original painting and that collector decides to sell that again, and my market value has increased because of my blood, sweat, and tears over 5 years, and now I've tripled the worth of that piece, I don't see any of that on that sale. But in this world, it's redefining the market, it's changing the game. And I'm excited not only for what that opens up for me, but I'm excited for everybody else that's in this and is an artist. And again, not just artists like me, music, whatever it may be. Our world is geared off of the creators who create the content, right? Even America's greatest export at this point is pop culture. It's like our celebrities are the biggest, our music is the biggest, everything that we do is the biggest and best and coveted all over the world. Well, and this is where it really ties together beautifully to me, because even the concept of decentralized finance and why we love crypto in the first place, because it brings the power back to the people and takes out the gateholders and the middleman. And so this is similar in a metaphor for the same thing, because the artist is then empowered to create his own network, his own ecosystem. And whether it be the galleries that were the gateholders before, or the art world that might have a traditional structure, this changes everything. Because now not only are we empowered with the financial aspect, there's a whole new world creatively. And it's beautiful because, one of the things that I'm doing and very excited about is, not only is it the aspect of having it on the blockchain and be able to be tracked in royalties, but what I'm doing with UREEQA as far as responsibly minted NFTs and being able to be verified, that takes it to a whole new level. So now, I adamantly do not like the idea that there's nothing new under the sun. I feel like unoriginal people say that. People who don't have the ability to come with concepts that aren't born out of anything else. My painting of the original float and sting with this is a follow-up to the saying, how to float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, has been around for 70 something years. When you look at my painting and what I did with that quote, nobody ever did that before. It wasn't new under the sun. And so I've always been concerned about people bootlegging my concepts, being able to run, I could accidentally make a series on a Tuesday, and just that series or style could become a financial windfall for somebody else that wants to bootleg that image and put it on t-shirts. I purposely haven't over merchandised my artwork. I don't put it on clothes. I don't put it on things. I'm very much about letting the canvas speak to it. So to be able to protect my work at that level, knowing that even if somebody is inspired by it or wants to do something that's a little bit shady, you can always come back and track it to me. And so it's almost like this has taken the restriction off my mind and where I want to go with it. And I feel protected in the space. I feel great with the team that's around me. And I think this is the precipice of a brand new, earth-shaking shift in how we look at creatives, creative material rights, and everything else. Because I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think this is just the beginning. And I'm excited to be at the beginning of it.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You have such a good understanding of blockchain and the principles and the fundamentals behind why it's in existence, and how that translate over not just into ERC20 fungible tokens, but how it translates to NFTs. And you already see the value, and I think that's so cool as an artist that you also understand the financial freedom that it brings to you guys and to people in general through decentralized finance, but also with NFTs with artists. And a lot of your work talks a lot about the financial system. And I guess I would love for you to talk about maybe some of the stories that you've told through some of that artwork that you've created that talks about your kind of dissatisfaction with the current financial system.
Well, sure. I've been blessed that as I described my background about coming out of college, working for myself, I used to dedicate a solid 4 to 5 hours a day just on research, because I became very dissatisfied with what the traditional textbooks and curriculums that I had completed up to a college Bachelor of Science degree. But I knew there was so much more they weren't telling me. And so I would just research and use that research. So it would be like I would learn and read and try to figure out things, and then I'd go paint about it. And so like one was constantly feeding the other. And when I stumbled on the Federal Reserve, that's what kind of like really kicked it off. And I think the quotes from Woodrow Wilson, when it's like some famous quote where he's like, "What I did today is just," the summary is like, "I really messed up. This is bad what I did." And I just kind of like studied and figured out like what it was all about in fiat currency and fractional reserve lending, and what really happened in 2008. And then the birth of the of crypto, and like you said, what it was about. My God, I mean, it could not fit more congruently with me and everything that I'm about, because my blueprint has always been, I am who I am because of the people who loved my work and followed me and elevated me into a place that I had a platform. And I'm eternally grateful for that. And I think that the world would be such a better place if we could take, like the middlemen out that really pull and take some of the most beautiful creatives in this world, and don't let them really flourish to the best of their capabilities. And so that's why, to me, man, like it couldn't be more perfect. And you're right. I really believe in it wholeheartedly as a concept. If I wasn't a painter and didn't have this ability, I would still be here, because even you see, I'm about like uplifting people, and especially the ones that aren't as privileged or who have been ignored through society. And just the aspect of unbankable countries and people and places in the world that now have access to the markets of currency because of what crypto has done, I think is amazing, because the powers that be kind of let them go by the wayside. So now you look at what we might define as third world countries with an empowered population. It's almost like, now what? Let's see.
Right.
And that's why I'm just, I'm really happy to be a part of it, because I believe in it wholeheartedly from my soul. And I think that I could be a major player in not only bringing people to this space and explaining what's so valuable about it, but really flexing my muscles and showing what you could do with it, because I feel like I'm perfectly suited.
Yeah, I think so too. So speaking of perfectly suited for the NFT space, what is going to set you apart? Like, what do you think sets your NFTs, and specifically like what we're doing with Fast's NFT division in our partnership with you? Like, how have some of the like, you want to explain to some of the people some of the utility that we're adding behind your pieces? I mean, obviously your pieces are so valuable in and of themselves, but then how we're kind of getting the community involved and benefiting Ferrum holders. I'm sure our community would love to know some of the strategies that we've implemented for these upcoming NFT drops. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, I could have just went to one of the marketplaces and minted something and came out in the game and been successful in that realm. But to me, it's always the bigger picture here. And so I feel like the crypto community, because I would like to believe they fall in line with a lot of the things that I just explained about the belief in it and what's going on. I feel like I want them to be exposed to my work, and then my regular fan base may not be so crypto savvy. And so I kind of wanted to make this marriage where let's exclusively offer and drop with the Ferrum network first, because in that ecosystem, adding the utilities, like you said, it creates something where I'm hoping that people will discover me and see my work and see what I'm about. And I think there can be almost like the two worlds colliding in a very wonderful way for all of us. And so to me, rather than just jumping out on that end, I'm trying to build something bigger here, a movement that, because once I come out and other artists see how I did it and the way that the rollout was, I'm hoping that, we'll kind of create a gateway and an opening for people to see like this is the next step and become involved. And so the value of a Ferrum network, what's everybody talking about right now? Like what is the NFT? What is the stuff? What is crypto? I know a lot of people right now that are seeing the price of Bitcoin and what's going on, and they're still skeptical. But the truth is, everybody kind of sees what's going on. There's this precipice that we're standing on. The IPO of Coinbase, and it's just out there in the regular everyday livings of everybody right now. And so to me, it was like, wait a second, if the art world is operated over here alone and doesn't really is just getting into NFTs, and I've been a traditional artist for most of that time. But then the crypto world is over here looking at NFTs, and there might be a value of that just from a crypto perspective. But what if they also started to learn about the art and the value in that itself and the artist? And so I just want to try to take these two lanes and put them on like a better pavement that can go faster. And that's why I'm excited to, strategize with you guys about how to put these utilities together and what they include, and doing the rollout that way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, speaking of utilities, and Ferrum's kind of created this whole ecosystem. There's a lot of DeFi plays, but we're also doing a lot of NFT plays now, right? With like UREEQA, which you mentioned, NetVRk. We've got some other NFT plays coming down the pipeline for future drops or for future projects, incubated projects. But and I'm sure they'll all be involved with you as well. And you've mentioned why you're excited about UREEQA with the responsible minting and validating your pieces to ensure that you're not getting taken advantage of out there. What excites you about NetVRk and what they've got kind of in the pipeline for you?
Yeah, that's why when you mentioned it, I smiled because, man, like it goes along the same line. So when I paint, and I'm looking at four different layers and four different elements and thinking how the viewer's eye is going to move from the left side to the right side, and how the flow is, and is there an interruption in the eyesight, and I'm thinking about all that. And so what's happening in the background, that's why it really lends itself to animation, and what's going to set me apart and be different is my process is almost doing that from my perspective as the artist. And so to be able to actually pull that out for the viewer, I think is going to be great. And then when you add in this aspect of the virtual world, again, going back to pixels having power, my message getting out, I can't wait to build the BK gallery in NetVRk and being able to use a more streamlined digital way to paint about current events, and maybe put on monthly exhibitions that can be very carefully curated in a certain topic or theme. But again, it's one of those things where you don't need like 10 minutes to look at it. I knew in the first 5 seconds of looking at what was going on with NetVRk and the way that they were building it and the attention to detail. I was like, yep, so I want to be a part of it. And so I'm very happy to be an ambassador on that end as well. I'm going to have some land in there. And it's almost like if I were to speak on what I'm going to do now, I feel like I'd be short selling myself, because it's like I haven't even digested and marinated all the ways yet that I could, really exploit that kind of technology married with my work. Because when you just talk about, okay, it's going to be animated on the screen, yeah, that's going to be dope. But imagine if you could like go inside of the painting and be in it in a 3D world and understand that, like literally I've created like a space that exists inside of these compositions. And I'm just really excited for maybe the people to be able to cast a different eye on my work. There's, like you said, so many levels, so many ways to dig into it, and it's just an amazing opportunity to know that the same way the internet bubble, where everybody saw the way things changed from pagers to cell phones, or I could name a couple different of these things that just changed the way that we think from like a MP3 player, and everything that happened with Napster and all these things that we've seen in our lifetime, right? Like, this is the next one. We're right here. It's it. And I think that anybody can kind of look at this with a reasonable mind and see where it's going. And so if you know what it's going to be, then why not try to be a pioneer in the space? I just got done saying that my whole life has been about making mistakes and not being afraid to go out there. A lot of people are afraid of that blank canvas, the first stroke, or how do I start? Well, how do you start going to the gym to get in better shape? You put one foot in front of the other. How do you stop a vice that you may have or something you want to change about your life? You put one foot in front of the other. Right. And so it's with anything else. Like when I make art, I might not know what I'm going to paint yet. I didn't know how I was going to paint Muhammad Ali out of nothing but butterflies and bees. I didn't know how. I told everybody around me that I was going to do it. And the first renditions, I wouldn't ever show you. But eventually I got it right. And, and that's what it's really about. So to me, yeah, I'm ready, man. I'm ready to just put one foot in front of the other, and let's see where this takes us.
Sweet, man. Yeah, well, man, we've been chatting for a minute now. I could talk to you all day, dude. So
Oh
I got
wow.
one more. We talk a lot. I got one more question for you. So we're gearing up for this first NFT drop, and it's pretty exciting stuff, man. I'm really stoked about this first drop and the piece that you chose, Hands of Time. Can you tell us a little bit about Hands of Time and why you chose this piece as your first drop?
Absolutely. And a lot of what we've already touched on really fits within what that piece is about. I think it's a great representation of what I mean by levels to my work and being able to weave together these different concepts. Um, so the title, Hands of Time 2, it's one of these paintings where I've had a concept, and this is the second iteration of it. The first one, um, from probably 5, 6 years before this one. And this, to me, I was a better artist and really had arrived in my zone to produce the work that I wanted to. So the piece really deals with what I was talking about, like what are you going to do with your time here? We at the end of our lifetimes, and you imagine yourself in a room, and it's just like these columns of all the minutes, all the months, all the weeks, all the years, decades, etc., of your life. And they're going to be tall stacks, but they could be hollow or they could be filled with incredible content and things that you did with that time when you were here. And so the beginning of the painting, if you look in the bottom center, it's this meter that says limit one lifetime expired. And then the left side and the right side are blue and red respectively. And it's this idea of, you could go through life and ignorance is bliss, and, not want to really look at the underbelly of this world and the history that created the places and the times that we live in. Or you can kind of, go down the rabbit hole and find out all these different things that may shock you to your core because the history is pretty jarring. But as you move through the painting, you see like the fonts of the clock change from a digital age into a different font to also signify just the changing of times and eras. And at the top, my mom always used to tell me, like, don't forget to stop and smell the roses. So the time disappears and it morphs into a purple rose from the two colors. It's like no matter what choice you made, no matter which way you went in life, like appreciate the blessings that you have and the time that you're given and what you're going to do with it. The center of the painting revolves around what to me has always been one of the greatest divides in human history, is the difference between races and the way that we look. And so you have a young black person with an older Caucasian person, and you have the Milky Way galaxy right between the forehead, like the third eye, and this idea that, the universe is at our fingertips if we really understand how to use the power of our minds and what we can do to bring everybody together. And then you have that individual at the top on the galaxy. It's one of my favorite parts because he's pulling back that clock hand because, it's that idea like, I wish I could have more time with you, or you lost a loved one and you wish you could bring him back, or slow down time in this moment because it's a beautiful experience and I don't want it to end. And I love how like you can see the wrinkling of the universe. You see the effort that he's putting in to hold that back. And then on the other side, you have a peregrine falcon, which is the fastest bird in the world. The whole idea of sometimes you wish time would fly or float away or take us to a different place. And so it's a, an illustration of these two different, forces that we have in our lives. Like sometimes time flies, sometimes it's slow and the worst, and, you just want to get out of there. But again, it just goes to this larger idea of, that problem and that gap in the middle, to me, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest problems in the world. And so it's like, whether we slow time down to understand and really learn the history of what's happened, or speed time up to get past the ugly place to the better place, it's really, the hands of time. It's like for every individual that looks at that piece, it's about what are you going to do with your time while you were here? What's your stacks going to look like? Are there going to be wasted weeks in there? Are going to be empty decades? Or is there going to be stacks filled up with a lot of mistakes because you weren't afraid to live and put yourself out there and not worry about being judged by other people and what they say and just do you? And so when it was, I have an amazing portfolio of works that I painted that could have been the first NFT. But what are we talking about right here? A new time, a new place, a new paradigm shift. So the hands of time works on that level. Expressing my style, and one of the things that makes me unique is the way that this is painted in that acrylic alchemy style. And I'm excited for your network to be able to see that, because as you go through the painting, it's like I described before, you follow it and you see the different elements. Even at the top, there's like two hourglasses with red sand and blue sand. It's like, again, the idea of like, is the hourglass going to run out before you get where you need to be? So it couldn't be more perfect on many different levels for this launch, for what we're doing, for the space. And then as always, you know, like, I hope that if somebody is, you know, being introspective, thinking about where they're at in their life, maybe investing in crypto because they want to change their life for their family or themselves, it's a reminder of what are you going to do with your time here? You know, make it worthwhile. Don't forget to stop and smell the roses and appreciate where you're at, and then make sure that, you know, at the end of the day that you don't want to look back and regret the chances you didn't take.
Wow. Yeah, man, that gave me chills. I think the Ferrum.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, of course, dude. I mean, I think the Ferrum community. I know I for one am going to be scrambling to get my hands on one of these pieces, and you know, obviously there's going to be utility that's added to the tokens as well to benefit our holders and whatnot. But I think the real value lies in the piece that you've created, and I think it's not only really pertinent to this time, like you said, with the whole paradigm shift, but it's also, you know, your art, I think in general, is going to withstand the test of time. And so I think everybody's going to want to be getting one of their hands on one of these pieces. And we're super, super stoked to have you on board, man. I think this is a perfect fit. There's so much alignment, there's so much synergy. Our ethos are completely in line with each other's, and we can't wait to drop this first set of NFTs. And I think it's going to be really beneficial for you as an artist and for the community, and just can't wait to get your art in the hands of more people, man.
Likewise, brother. Thank you very much. I feel 100% the same, and I look forward to taking this ride, man.
Cool, man. All right, dude. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Yep. Later.
Ferrum Network brings you the Ferrum Advisory Services. NFT Division. FAS NFT Division is your one source for your NFT needs.